Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. My co-host Robin and I are absolutely thrilled and excited to bring another inspiring and impactful woman so that you can meet her, get to know her, and add to the circle of this community of women investing in women. And you may ask, why are we talking about women investing in women? It's not just about the money. We women go through cycles just like the moon. We go through different phases, different stages, and at every stage of our life, our sisterhood, our support system, women supporting each other is what makes our life possible. As we come out of different phases, enter different phases, we need to have that sisterhood already built. And today we're going to be talking about one of those phases women go through and how women can support one another and how our guest is truly shaping the world for women entering this phase. Robin, take it away.
Awesome. I am so thrilled to have Heather Nemelka as our guest today. I learned about her when I was reading the BYU Alumni Magazine, and she had an amazing story in creating a company called Elevare and the process through which that came about. And I was so impressed with her and impressed with what she was doing in the world that I said, oh my gosh, we have to have her on. So Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself and how this Elevare company and what you're doing came to be.
Thank you so much. And it's so great to be on this podcast with you both. I have always loved supporting women. And about 11 years ago, I had to return to the workforce after an 18-year career gap to support my family. My husband had filed for divorce after almost 25 years of marriage. And I knew I was always going to return to the workforce, but I wanted it to be on my terms. And suddenly I was thrust into this chapter that I hadn't expected. And so I had to navigate this scary time. And I felt very alone. I didn't have any resources. At that time, there weren't very many resources available, and people that I knew weren't divorced. So it was a very precarious time for me. And at first, I was just going through the motions, trying to get my job and get back in the workforce. And then over time, I got into tech and I pivoted and I wanted to start a company. And so I thought I was going to start a tech company, and I was going down that road. And then some changes happened to make it such that it wasn't going to be possible. And I was kind of complaining to my cousin and said, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm supposed to start a company, but this tech company isn't working out. What should I do? And he asked me a series of questions. And through that process, I determined, or he actually determined, that I should go back and help women return to the workforce, because that's what I've been doing for years. People would reach out to me on LinkedIn, friend of a friend. I understand you help women. And so I realized I needed to make a nonprofit and really formalize this passion project of mine. And so that's how Elevare came to be.
Interesting. So this is a nonprofit.
Yes. So I have a nonprofit, Elevare Foundation, and then I also have a for-profit, Elevare LLC, to fund the nonprofit.
Okay. So as we look at the women who are going to be coming through this process, as they're returning to work, some are going to come back to work for reasons outside of divorce. Some are going to come because of divorce. And some are going to come because they're single mothers, because single women trying to have children and raise a family is also commonplace. So is there a difference in the way different women need to approach this? How are you supporting them through it? Because the rules of engagement are different for different places where women are coming from.
Yes, I would say right now, 30% of the women I support are going through divorce or some financial issues. So they have a financial need to return to the workforce. I now have also started supporting women who have been in the workforce all along, but have had a difficult time in this past year and a half to get back into a job. And so that makes up probably about 10% of the women that I'm supporting. And then the additional 60% are women who are starting chapters where they're becoming an empty nester. Their children are all in school. They're having to rediscover themselves, and they recognize that they have so much more to offer, and they are doing it more for fulfillment reasons. So primarily the two reasons I'm working with women are for financial issues and for fulfillment.
That's really beautiful. I love what you just said, where they are trying to find themselves or discover themselves again and discover what they have to bring to the world. So what is the process you go through in women who are, besides the nuts and bolts of, getting a job, what's the process you go through in helping women, discover themselves again and realizing they have so much more to offer than what they had been thinking?
Yes, and oftentimes these women, whether they're going back for financial reasons or for fulfillment, we all lose a little bit of ourselves when we become caregivers, and we're, whether we're caring for aging parents or children. And so what I do is I have them do an exercise where they spend about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and make a list of all of the different activities, accomplishments, things that they used to love to do, what made them really excited at any time in their life. This could be growing up, this could be in college, this could be in early years of their original career if they were in one to start with, and really taking note of what made them feel alive and gave them a sense of accomplishment. And so once they've done that, I then ask them to contact 20 to 30 friends and family who they can contact on email and reach out and say, I would love for you to tell me 3 of my talents or qualities that make up the person that I am. And you give them 3 days. So they have to come back to you pretty quickly that week, ideally. And they tell you what they think your strengths are. Because a lot of women, they're just like, well, I know I've been taking care of my parents or my children. I'm really good at, making meals and running errands and things like that. But they forget all the skills that they've acquired as a caregiver and that transfer into the workforce. And a lot of it is like, they just need to remember who they are again. And it takes time to rediscover that. I even tell them, go to places that really used to bring you a lot of happiness. Like maybe you enjoyed a trail that you used to take all the time walking, or maybe you used to love to travel to a certain place. Go to those places and remember what it was like to be you again.
That is fascinating. And I'm glad to hear you say that you go through that whole holistic process, right, for women to get in touch with themselves. The question that's coming up for me is, as women, our life is not in boxes. Unlike men, it's fluid, and we're still continuing to do the things we do while we try to return to work. We return to work while being a full-time caregiver, right? We return to work while doing so many other things, not even for the immediate family, for the next of kin, for the community. So when a woman's role is looked at as non-financial generating, because the modern economic definition doesn't include all work as paid work, how do you guide women to harmonize time for them, time for their role in life, and time for returning to work? Because there is balance means only two things. Women have more than two things, and it's not either or.
Yes, a former executive at, I believe it was Coca-Cola, he gives a great analogy of juggling balls. He gave this great analogy of juggling balls, and some are glass and some are rubber. And what he explains is you need to figure out which are your rubber balls that can bounce on the ground and you can pick them back up, and which ones are your glass balls. Those are relationships. Those are, the key things in your life that you never want to break. And if those break, it's much more difficult to pick up the pieces and carry on. And so, as women, we are juggling so many different balls. And sometimes we're juggling more rubber than glass, and sometimes we're juggling more glass than rubber. And I don't think that there is any such thing as balance, because when you're constantly juggling, you are always having to be aware of your surroundings, what you're juggling, what's going on inside internally. And so I really try to help women recognize that there's not a perfect way of pursuing this next chapter and phase of life. It's not going to be easy, but it can be very enjoyable, very fulfilling, and very challenging in a good way that can make you grow in ways you never thought you would. And I think that's what women just have to recognize, is that we do a lot. And that's what makes us so special and impactful, is we can do so much. And I think it's just a matter of prioritizing what matters the most in that time of life that you're in.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love that analogy, the glass balls, the rubber balls. I have not heard that before. So that will might become an Instagram post someday. What I'm coming back to is your exercise that you go through with the women where email 30 people, ask them what do they perceive of you. And I have heard about that exercise and I've never done it because I just don't want to reach out to people and be that vulnerable and say, "Do you like me?" What do you like about me? It just feels so awkward. And so I'm wondering, how do your clients respond to that? And how do you help them navigate? I mean, maybe not everyone feels like I do, but how do you help them navigate that exercise, which to me just feels so very awkward?
And you're right, it is very vulnerable. And oftentimes, what I tell them is approach your friends and family by saying it's a project that you're doing on the side for, some discovery opportunity. Or you can say, I'm doing a class or a program or however you want to describe it, and I need to do this as one of my assignments. So you feel like you aren't, you're not asking things just out of the blue. And then when you ask this of them, you just say, I just want you to be honest. Tell me what you think, and I'd love to hear back from you in the next 3 days. And the reason why you reach out to 20 to 30 people is because not all of them are going to respond. But what you're going to find out in that process is that there are going to be common answers among many of them, which are going to help you determine where your strengths lie. And 100%, it is hard at first because you feel awkward asking people to tell you what they think of you. But for me, it was such an eye-opening experience when I did this. I did this when I very first had started going back to work, and I did it as part of my executive MBA program with BYU. And it was interesting to find the qualities that came up. They said things like intelligence and smart and compassionate and determined, and these adjectives, some of them were saying the same things over and over again. And I realized, wow, I never thought I was smart. And yet people had said that I was smart, so I must be smart. And it gave me a measure of confidence that I didn't have before, knowing that if others saw me in this way, then it must be true. And I think it really helps women in this journey of rediscovering themselves because they recognize, wow, I have so much more to offer, and there's more to me than I thought there was.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that process. Anytime we go through change, we also bring baggage. So women going through divorce have anger, hate, whatever those emotions are, right? Sadness. And any transition, especially when it involves money, there is such a humongous baggage that comes with it. And as women dealing in financial environments, it adds to that baggage. So if you're already carrying 2 suitcases, they're going to throw in 2 more backpacks on you. How do you help women navigate the baggage that they're bringing in? Because that's going to be toxic for their own healing. And then how do you also help them not take on baggages that the society is placing on them?
That is such a challenging question, and I hope I can address it properly. So, when I was going through my divorce, obviously I was returning the workforce for financial reasons. We did not have the savings that I thought we had. I wasn't aware of what was going on in our financial situation. And so I started this new journey without alimony, very little child support, and I did not have a great financial foundation. My baggage was that we could never afford things. There was never enough money to go around. This was baggage I had growing up. And so I had to start realizing that there was plenty to go around, that they're having this abundance mindset that I had heard others speak about, but I hadn't recognized how I definitely had a scarcity mindset. Hadn't realized it until I was on this own journey of trying to support myself financially. And I started to recognize that I could, in fact, support my family. I could, in fact, earn the money that I needed to. And I really had to change my mindset into believing that I would be able to provide. And at first, I didn't have very much money and I was struggling. There was a time when I couldn't even buy a pack of gum because I just knew that that was money I needed to put into my children and my family. But as time got on, continued on, and I started to believe that I could make more money. I was more than just a marketing coordinator, which was the job that I first started out in as a returner, that I could make more, I could be a manager. I started to set goals to earn more money and recognize that I was worth that. I was definitely worth that. But that's something that sometimes still is a challenge for me. Sometimes when I want to raise prices for the work that I'm doing, it's challenging because I think, oh, I don't know that I'm worth that. But certainly we undervalue ourselves as women. And especially if you've been working all along in the home and haven't been paid, then you don't think you are of value. And you have to recognize that you are worth every penny and more. And it is a struggle to get over that, the baggage that we all carry. And I'm constantly trying to get rid of this extra baggage. Sometimes I'll do really well and I'm thinking, this is great. And then I'll realize I've got some extra backpacks on my back that I thought I got rid of, and they're back on my back. So it's a process.
That is a fantastic answer. And I love your notion of mindset, realizing what your mindset is, realizing what you want it to be, and then going through that process of changing it. And I also love what you said about women who have been stay-at-home moms and not getting paid. And, what is your worth? What is your worth? Because our society attaches value to your finances. And if you haven't been making money, then what are you worth? So it's a really fascinating and really important thing to address. I want to, one thing that, 'cause we just have a few minutes left, but one thing I really love to find out about from our guests is some of the challenges that they have met. And you've talked about like your emotional challenges, your financial challenges, but what are some of the other, maybe the nuts and bolts challenges that you met in either setting up your business or maybe working with women who are very difficult difficult to work with? What have been some of the hard things you've had to navigate, just in the practical aspect of forming and running a business?
Well, I had to be very scrappy because I didn't have this nest egg of money to be able to go into forming Elevair. So I worked with a team of BYU students through their on-campus internship program to get some interns that were helping Elevair as part of their schooling. So I didn't have to pay them. I also started to be really scrappy with ChatGPT and ask it questions like, how do I form a nonprofit? How do I get the funding? How do I answer these grant applications? And learning how to run a business through asking it lots of questions and just giving it the context of, I've never done this before. I do have an MBA, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Help me figure this out. And I've received a lot of guidance that way. Something else that I think had been a weakness of mine in the past was not reaching out to others for help. And I became very good at networking, reaching out to friends, family, neighbors, even former coworkers and managers, and asking them for help and support. Teach me how to do this. How do I navigate this difficult conversation? Or what is the best approach for this? And taking advantage of those in your circle and even extended circle, because even those that are closely related to you, if they can't answer your questions, they might know somebody who can. And that's how I really was able to get through some of those early challenges of forming Elevair and figuring out, how do you do this? How do you start a business? I've never done this before. It's so scary. And little by little, you start to see evidence of the work you're doing, and that helps build confidence. And so I think that's what over time has been such an amazing eye-opening experiences that I've reached places of continued confidence over time as I continue to do those hard things. And so that's kind of been my journey.
Thank you, Heather. This has been an amazing conversation. And time flies. Time flies when we are focused. And as we bring this to a close, I would love for you to take a moment and share with our audience how they can get a hold of you and any closing thoughts you have for women in general to be proactive and not find themselves in a place where they have to look for things after the fact, but what can they do proactively?
Thank you. You can reach me at elavare.com. That's elavare.com. And we're going to be launching a new subscription service where we have free, basic, and premium. So wherever you are in your journey and whatever your means are, you can get accelerated help if you want. And then I would say the thing that I would tell women right now is if you lack confidence, if you are doubting yourself, start now by collecting evidence of the things you've done in your past that you have forgotten about, that make you an amazing woman, mother, caregiver, scholar, whoever you are and wherever you are in your journey, because that evidence helps us build confidence. And I would say that go back through your growing up and childhood, and anytime you've had challenging conversations, anything that helped build your confidence, take note of that. And over time, continue to add to that list because we lose confidence very easily. And oftentimes we need a reservoir of evidence to remind us how impactful and empowered we are. We don't need anybody to empower us. We're already powerful women.
Thank you so much. It has been an absolute delight to have this conversation with you. And I know Robin and we are going to be talking about some of the nuggets of wisdom with our community for days to come. Thank you so much, Heather. And to our audience out there, you heard the conversation. And I personally believe in the fact that women don't need to be empowered. We already come into this world without power. So find the ways to stay in your place of power and embrace a sense of abundance. Because everything we need, Mother Nature, which is also a feminine energy, has already provided to us. Build relationships. And what I have experienced in my life is wealth is not just money. Our relationships are the biggest wealth that is unwavering. So build those before you need so that when the time comes, you can draw from it. Like we talked today, our network is going to be so important in our success. As we enter the Thanksgiving season, be grateful, embrace life with gratitude, and be grateful for who you are and be proud of who you are. Because from your power is where everything else stems.